Hey you guys, and welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be doing my final Stargate deck profile on Beast Deity Ethics Buster. Now I know that most people will say you should save the best for last. In this case, I saved last for last because out of all the variations of Nova Grappler that exist and are out there, I really do believe that this deck kind of got like the shaft because it did get the shaft. I'm just gonna keep it real here. However, on this channel, we like to stay optimistic. I said the same thing about Fiona. I said the same thing about Coco. I said the same thing about Dontarian. And you guys just know by now that I give every single deck out there a chance to potentially be the greatest that it possibly can. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and show you my take and my edition of Beast Deity Ethics Buster on this channel. So we're gonna go ahead and get started on that now. Alright you guys, so welcome to the deck profile. To get started, we play 4 copies of the newest Beast Deity, Ethics Buster. Now, Ethics Buster is one of the newest cards introduced to us for Nova Grapplers, and he hasn't been featured on this channel before, so I'm going to go ahead and explain his effect. When placed or rode upon, discard 2 cards from your hand, stand one of your units with Beast Deity's card name, and attack your opponent's Vanguard with that unit. At the end of that battle, if that attack did not hit, stand that unit. And if that attack hit, that unit gets drive -1 until the end of the turn. It has a second Vanguard ability which states, on the Vanguard circle, when your unit Beast Deity's card name attacks, you may counterblast 1, that unit gets plus 5,000 power to the end of the turn. Sorry guys, I forgot the effect of the card. This ability pretty much stays on theme with Beast Deity's main phase attacking. It actually does it in a more aggressive manner, but the only problem with this is the fact that because it costs 2 and the fact that you can't keep reusing this on itself like multiple times and it's not Vanguard or Rearguard, means that unfortunately you're just expelling a lot of resources for a lot of poking attacks, as that's kind of like the theme of Beast Deity. They want to attack you during the main phase. If you pull a damage trigger, then they gotta play around it and it gives them a chance to recoup and then go to you in the battle phase and try to stop you from doing what you can. Ethics Buster is good as like the first Vanguard ride because it lets you lead into your next turn. So on the first turn, if you go first in the game, this ability is actually very strong as you're getting a very aggressive start off against your opponent because they've got to deal with potentially 2 Vanguard attacks. And if you have a board of front row rearguard units and you use the other effects of cards you might have in the deck that have other main phase attacking abilities, that means your opponent is potentially dealing with 3 attacks during the main phase before you even enter the battle phase, which is strong and helpful against your opponent. But where this deck falls short of is that unfortunately a lot of the Beast Deity units do not gain power, which means that 1 damage trigger during the main phase of all those attacks can shut you down, and then you have to plan your main phase around that because now your opponent has 1 damage trigger in there, so if they get another one, your turn is over. The 5,000 power is helpful, but this is Nova Grappler and you'd rather spend your counterblast elsewhere, so you're not always going to have that plus 5k effect to rely on, and that unfortunately is something that we needed because the extra power is just really needed in Beast Deity, and that's where Ethics Buster unfortunately falls short, other than being an extremely aggressive first turn ride. Moving on to my next grade 3, I play 4 copies of Beast Deity Astral Dragon. Beast Deity Astral Dragon, hands down, is one of the best. Beast Deity Astral Dragon is the best Beast Deity that VPremium has, as being able to get additional draw and then a multiple attack on the main phase while adding to your resources is extremely helpful. And the fact that he has this ability to stand another unit on his attack means that after writing this card from your Ethics Buster, which is ideally a part of our strategy, which is why we don't want to spend this counterblast, is extremely helpful and is probably one of your most aggressive turns that you can get, as not only are you getting an additional Excel marker that you can put a unit on, but you're also being able to draw a card and get another rearguard attack before the effects of your other units that can attack during the main phase, meaning that your opponent is going to have to deal with potentially 8 to 9 attacks throughout the entire turn. Now, unfortunately, the only problem with this card is the fact that it stays with the deck's theme of not being able to get power, which means that even though we're getting all these attacks, we just have to pay attention to managing our power, because if we don't have power and we have all these attacks that we can't do, then it doesn't matter. But Beast Deity Astral Dragon is your ideal second grade 3 turn ride, as it gets resources, extra attacks, and works very well with Ethics Buster. For my last grade 3, I'm playing 2 copies of Ultra Beast Deity Illuminal Dragon. Ultra Beast Deity Illuminal Dragon is one of the best supporting Nova Grappler grade 3s, as being able to get plus 15,000 power when your unit's attack hits means that this card can get over 1 defensive trigger, which assists our deck in our offensive problem. And he's a really good second grade 3 turn ride as well over your Astral Dragon, depending on where you're at and what pieces you have, as this card also gets power on the Vanguard circle and generates 2 additional attack if your opponent blocked it, meaning that one of your units potentially can get you 2 or more attacks even if it attacked during the main phase because it did not hit. I'm only playing 2 of this because of how Beast Deity works. I chose the additional card draw and the board building with Astral Dragon over this because I usually want this card in my rearguard circle, because it's one of the units that I'm probably going to restand with my Astral Dragon because it's going to build up power. And if I'm in a winning situation, then it's usually because I wrote Astral Dragon over Ethics Buster and I got additional Vanguard attack, a card draw, and multiple board units attack on main phase 1. I'm just grateful for this card and its power and the fact that it's Beast Deity, which does help the deck, meaning that you now have a unit that can get you over those defensive damage triggers. I'm now going to move on to my grade 2s. I play 4 copies of Beast Deity Typhoon Bird. Beast Deity Typhoon Bird is another unit that's introduced to us in the deck, and she has the following effect, which is on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, you may counterblast 1 once per turn. If you have a Vanguard Beast Deity's card name, you look at 5 cards from the top of the deck, call up to 1 non-grade 2 card with Beast Deity's card name from among them to rest, and then shuffle your deck. So this card actually does help something out that Nova Grappler always had an issue of, or at least fixes one of Nova Grappler's main issues, specifically in Beast Deity, which is that you need board to obviously generate multiple attacks because your Vanguard can't do everything. And this deck is very rearguard reliant, as our rearguards all respond very well to what they can do. So having Typhoon Bird to build a board, which means that we get more free resets, more free resources, and more deck building to our opponent. We get more free resources, more deck thinning, and we have cards that can restand with ease. So that means that we're pretty much getting a lot of free resources from cheap cost, and that's what we want. For my next grade 2, I play 4 copies of Beast Deity Black Tortoise. Beast Deity Black Tortoise is an older grade 2, and he's never been shown on this channel, so I'll go ahead and give him a little intro. He has the similar effect to Ethics Buster, but this one cost. For a Counterblast and Soul Blast, you may stand him, and he gets to do an attack an opponent's Vanguard, and if his attack did not hit, you get to stand him until the end of that battle. So just a little clarification on this card. If this card is standing, you can use the skill to Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1 attack, and then restand it if it meets the qualifications to restand, because in Vanguard, you perform as much of the skill as possible, so I just want to put that out there. This card is one of the units I was talking about that can generate us multiple attacks during our main phase besides our Ethics Buster and our Astral Dragon, as he pretty much does what they do but as a grade 2 version, and because it is the grade 2 version of it, it means that we can use this card for our early game rush if we want to go that type of route. The only bad thing about this card is because it is a grade 2, you just can't call it out with Typhoon Bird. But that's okay, because if you draw into it, that just means that you have more units to attack with during your rush turns. And for my last grade 2, I play 2 copies of Boomerang Thrower. In this deck, our opponent will, pay attention to our counterblast, and we do use Soul. We use pretty much all of the resources in this deck. Like, this is Nova Grappler. We use everything cost, and we need to be able to refund that cost, and Boomerang Thrower, just to give us that additional resources back, is extremely helpful. I'm going to go ahead and showcase my grade 1s now. I play 2 copies of Extreme Battler Arashid. Extreme Battler Arashid is my grade 3 searcher for Nova Grappler. It helps us look for our key pieces. We really do want to try and ride our Ethics Buster first, and then go to our Astral Dragon, get as many attacks as possible on that turn. But if there's other grade 3s that we need to see for offensive reasons, or we just need to get rid of some cards in our hand to filter out for pieces, then Arashid's our best way to go. This is Nova Grappler. Standing units is easy, so the plus 5,000 power is practically free as well. For my next grade 1, I played 3 copies of Beast Deity Glams Dragon. So Beast Deity Glams Dragon is another one of the units that I was talking about that lets us get a restanding attack during our main phase. He has the simple effect of if you attack and your Vanguard is a grade 3 Beast D unit, you may Soul Blast 1 and stand this unit. So whenever one of your other units attacks, you have to stand this card, and you pretty much have a card that does a free multiple attack for a Soul Blast instead of a Counter Blast, which is extremely helpful because, as I stated before, we want to use our Counter Blast and other abilities. And even though he's only 8k, with our Excel marker, we'll be able to boost his power up, meaning that his attack will be relevant. And he's just a key piece to our offense. For my next grade 1, and possibly the most important grade 1, I play 4 copies of Beast Deity Scarlet Bird. Beast Deity Scarlet Bird is well known throughout every Nova Grappler deck, as it's pretty much universally usable. You only need White Tiger in the Soul to get a Soul Blast 1 and to draw a card. But you get that draw by restanding your units. As you've seen with Typhoon Bird and Ethics Buster and Tortoise, you notice that if these units' attacks do hit, that means that they're stuck at rest, which means that we can't use them during the battle phase. But to get those multiple attacks, we need to be able to stand them up. That's where this guy comes into play, because once those attacks go through, and if they do go through, you get to call this card out, Soul Blast 1, restand up everybody, and you get to draw a card as well. And the only thing you need for that is the starter, which is something that you decide before the game, but you're playing Beast Deity, so you're always going to pick White Tiger. Being able to drawing cards is important. This deck discards a lot, and you do want to be able to see your pieces. So you need this card at 4 to get the most resource management out of your deck as possible. I play 4 copies of one of the newest Beast Deities, Beast Deity Lift Taurus. Lift Tauros is new, so I'll go ahead and Lift Tauros is one of the newest cards introduced to us for Beast Deities, and he has the following effects. His first effect is on rearguard. When placed during your main phase, you may stand one of your units with Beast Deity's card name. He then has the second effect that states Vanguard or rearguard circle. When your Vanguard attack hits, look at 5 cards from the top of your deck. Reveal it to 1 grade 3 card with Beast Deity's card name from among them and put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. If you put it into your hand and this unit is on rearguard, put this unit into your soul. Beast Deity Lift Tauros is a key piece into our searching for our grade 3 pieces as Arashid is. I've actually thought about taking Arashid out for more resource management cards, as that's really where this deck is lacking at in the resource management because it's so aggressive. But Lift Tauros has been doing a really good job of that. You actually need 4 copies of this card because if you whiff with your Ethics Buster, essentially on the attack, you are going to need to be able to play something that can restand it, because Scarlet Bird, although helpful, in case you don't see that, this card is pretty much the second variation of that, as it does stand 1, and it does work for the main phase, which means that it does work on the main phase, which means that the developers did keep in mind that your Ethics Buster sometimes may succeed or may whiff, and that's where this card does come into play. It being able to move into Soul is extremely helpful as well, as the only card that generates a Soul charging is Boomerang Thrower, and we do want to be able to use our Scarlet Bird at all times, and we do want to be able to play Black Tortoise as well. So we need cards that push into Soul, and that's where this guy kicks into. Moving on to my triggers, I play 2 copies of Red Lightning, 4 copies of Old Anchor, 6 critical triggers. I play 2 copies of 3 Minutes, and 4 copies of Twin Blader, 6 draw triggers, and finally I play 4 copies of Wallboy, 4 heal triggers, and I play 1 copy of Beast Deity White Tiger. You have to play Beast Deity White Tiger as your starter, because if you want to be able to get the full advantage of Scarlet Bird, you need to play White Tiger as your starter. So when you're filling out your deck list and you're building this deck, make sure you choose White Tiger. Alright you guys, so we are at that point in the deck profile where I tell you what marker I think is best to play. Now, I'm always honest on this channel about how I play my decks and from my experience and from my own play testing, and I must say that I'm showing Excel 1 and Excel 2 because when it comes to Beast Deity specifically, I am conflicted. And in all of my games, I ended up finding myself using both of these markers pretty much about the same, because when Beast Deities are doing very well, the only thing that becomes lacking is just the power. And then Excel 1 looks like your best option, because if you're going to be generating a lot of attacks, then you need the power behind it to make those attacks actually scary. As that's where this deck kind of lacks at, because I don't play front triggers in this deck, which means that you're relying on your criticals to become threatening on the units that are going to restand at least once or twice a game. But when you're not having a good game, when your opponent's, you know, destroying you, then that additional card draw and extra resources from XL2 becomes helpful. As throughout this video, I've been saying that one of this deck's main weaknesses is its resource management. This deck is very offensive and very aggressive, but because the units don't gain any power, that unfortunately does not help their cause, as if you play against a force deck, you have to play other cards around them so that their attacks actually matter. But if you play against another Excel Protect deck, then it's not as bad because they're going to be at 12,000 power minimum. So I have found myself conflicted in most of my games. I either go XL1 or XL2, but the circumstances are going to determine which mark you're going to go into. I know that most BCD players will just say go XL2 because the resource management of the deck, just save yourself the trouble and get the extra card draw. But really think about it when you play this deck, because you are going to miss the power from the XL1. At the end of the day, you're getting additional rearguard circle and they're going to get power, but would you rather have the additional 10k on a unit that can get over a damage trigger, or would you rather have the 5k where you need a trigger to get over their damage trigger because you're not playing fronts? So that's just something to think about, and that's just me being real. Alright you guys, so that is it for my Beast Deity deck profile. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Do not forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help the channel. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Also, don't forget to hit the notification bell so you guys are notified whenever I have new deck profiles or discussions coming out for this channel. If your friend is thinking about building a Beast Deity deck profile, go ahead and share this video with them so that they can use this deck right here as a template. All my deck templates, they just come from me watching videos, personal experience, and me taking notes on how I play all of my decks. So thank you guys so much for watching. There's one more deck profile coming out for Stargate. It's my Chaos Breaker Dragon deck profile, and that'll be my last video for VPremium Stargate decks. Peace. But until then, see you soon.